This one is Thunderbals 176, and I am still not bothering with the name change. It wasn't designed to attract new readers. This revamp wasn't to try and get more people buying the book. It was to push what readers the book had away and also confuse any new readers it did accidentally pick up with the title change. This issue, the second issue of this supposed revamp, it does not feature a single member of the new titular Dark Avengers team. The entire issue is set with the Thunderbals team that were active before the renaming. The time-travelling team who are having their own cross-time caper. If you did get the first issue, which was numbered 175, more proof that this wasn't an attempt to find a new audience, but to make a point that the book doesn't sell. This issue would confuse you. You were coming in halfway into a cross-time caper, and the characters that you got the last issue for are not even alluded to in this one. Though I honestly don't think, other than Ulkson, anyone was checking out the title for those characters. The Thunderbals have gone back to the dawn of man, and this issue has 2 retcons, and they're quite alright. I will explain some of it for people who maybe didn't see my video on the issue before this. This series was renamed with issue 175, and supposedly the Thunderbals were done with. And we had the Dark Avengers now, a team made up of mostly uninteresting Michael Bryan Benson characters. A set of bad guys that, had any other writer brought them together as a team, they would never appear again. But Michael Bryan Benson and all his ideas and all his characters get immortalised forever and forced onto the readers who don't want anything to do with him or all his ideas or all his characters. This change came bang on in the middle of a story called The Great Escape, wherein most of the Thunderbals team were getting lost in space-time. They were visiting different time periods like World War II, and it was a fairly by-the-numbers cross-time caper where it goes on probably longer than it should, and you're not sure there is any point to it besides set pieces. Everything about the reshuffling of Thunderbals into Dark Avengers annoys me, but I don't want to spend another video griping and groaning, because Jeff Parkman, the writer, does the best he can do with these changes that I do not believe were things he wanted to pursue. I've not really talked about this Thunderbals lineup before, but there are some characters on it, like Moonstump or Casper or Captain Boomerang, who I really like. And then there is the rest. They're not bad characters, and they are written well in the series, but they are not favourites. I did want to get more into Who is Who, but there's not a great establishing shot at the start, so that boat has sailed. We are getting to the retcons on the next page, so I want to quickly say that this roster, this version of the team, for me, the problem is not many of them are redeemable, and the idea of redemption isn't on their minds. As a Thunderbals team, it doesn't gel for me. Captain Boomerang and Moonstump's flirting aside, I am not getting to explore these characters as much as I am getting to see them have fun adventures. And Jeff Parkman does write a fun team, if not a compelling one. He also retcons a Fantastic Force story for the better. I am going to spoil the twist of this issue. This man they find adrift at sea, being devoured by sharks at the dawn of man. This is Mr. Doom. This is a time-travelling Mr. Doom, and it is in reference to a story that nobody really liked. And up to this point, this is 5 years after it happened. Nobody had bothered to even acknowledge that story, or how badly it screwed Mr. Doom. There was a story by Matt Miller and Ryan Itchams where we were introduced to the man who taught Mr. Doom everything he knows. That classic crap idea where you take a beloved character who is great in their own right and then pull the rug and go, but everything that makes him your favourite character is because of this super awesome new character you've never seen or heard of before. This is him here. His name is Clyde. He was bigged up as you would expect. He was meant to be the most evil and most powerful thing ever. And then he utterly defeated and curb-stomped Mr. Doom and dumped him into the past to be devoured by sharks at the dawn of man. And Mr. Doom died. Or did he? In the end, it turns out that Clyde's apprentice, who you always see walking around with Clyde, is actually Mr. Doom, and he has lived ever since that shark fight and plotted his revenge against Clyde. It's nonsense. Mr. Doom apparently lived for millennia, biding his time to slowly get revenge on Clyde. And basically it means that Mr. Doom now has all this extra baggage of being like 300,000 years old. A very bad story. Well, here we see what really happened. Moonstump gans to save this person from the sharks. She does a good thing seemingly as a compulsion. And her and Zatanna are catfighting. And there's Captain Boomerang in the middle being himself, aka a cocky little shit. We do come back to the Mr. Doom stuff, but we see the big baby in a nappy and the Omega Titans, and we start to get to our other retcon, which is less good in my opinion, but I don't hate it or anything. Oh, here we have Mr. Doom explaining cryptically what happened to him, mostly so the readers can understand what this is in reference to. It had been half a decade since the story this is retconning. The Thunderbals themselves, they don't recognise this as Mr. Doom, because obviously he is unmasked and battle damaged. But you'd think that they would maybe notice he's wearing something that is quite identifiable as Mr. Doom's armour. So our other retcon is we learn that Swamp Thing, through the Thunderbals' time travelling, Swamp Thing was the first life form on Earth. I guess that is fine. Swamp Thing is one of Jeff Parkman's pet characters. And I did get a comment a few weeks ago asking me to talk about this character's comics. I don't really have any. But if people want me to talk about this character, there is a Thunderbals issue before this that would be perfect for a discussion about this character and what I have read of his and what I recommend. You go, girl. I don't often point out individual panels, but this one of the team in the elevator of their time travelling headquarters, I think this is a very good image. If it was at the start of the issue, I would have used it to tell you which one of these characters appears as a skeleton in Marky Mark G's Captain America, and how the action figure they did of Mr. Ainz with the bowler hat on comes from this run. They find out that the person they saved was Mr. Doom, and the second part of our retcon comes into play. Mr. Doom actually travelled back to the present using the Thunderbals' technology. He didn't live through fucking 300,000 years patiently waiting to get revenge on Clyde. He straight away returned to the present and proved he was better than his master. He told that fiction about living since the dawn of man because he wanted his enemies, the Fantastic Force, to think of him as capable of that level of hatred and vengeance. And that is so much better than something that kind of breaks the character tremendously and makes him fucking ancient. I consider Jeff Parkman's retcon here a constructive one. I did think a lot beforehand about comparing it to Kurt Busey's retcons, but it's so different. They are similar in concept, but executed for completely different reasons. It doesn't make it so that if you liked that Matt Miller story, it doesn't make it so that any of the plot beats or the story are no longer valid. It all happened. Mr. Doom was still defeated. He was still dumped back in time. He still comes back and defeats Clyde in a methodical way. The only real similarity to a Kurt Busey retcon is that Mr. Doom was apparently lying. He's doing some smoke and mirrors. But here is the enormous difference. Mr. Doom lying ultimately says something about Mr. Doom. Mr. Doom wanting his enemies to think this version of events, it is to make them fearful of his eventual retribution against them. What part of Space Pants Man telling the Avengers that every story they've ever had secretly had Space Pants Men in it is making the Space Pants Man an exciting, intriguing character? Kurt Busey tears down a building. Jeff Parkman simply refurbishes a flaw on the building. We have Captain Boomerang spelling out one of the great ironies here, that the team, or rather Moonstump, did something good in saving a person, and it turned out to be Mr. Doom. And Mr. Doom, he doesn't want anyone knowing that his life was saved by the Thunderbals. He obviously will lie about how he survived, as we saw. So he intends to return to the future, but not before dealing with and getting rid of this team that know the truth. I think there is some good ideas in here, and there's definitely charm to the characters. We have a good retcon in this, but we are in the middle of a storyline, so I cannot recommend it for that reason. How many more Thunderbals comics do people want to see me cover on here? I'll be generous and give Thunderbals 176 7 thumbs up.